Welcome to Learners Academy. This is Mona Bhatia, and today I'm going to take up a poem, very beautiful poem by William Wordsworth upon Westminster Bridge. And Westminster Bridge is a road and foot traffic bridge over the River Thames, and you can see Big Ben and Palace while walking over this bridge. While Wordsworth often wrote poems about nature, but upon Westminster Bridge is a poem describing the city of London as the sun rises. The poem takes shape as the poet describes the sights and feelings of the quiet early morning before the city springs to life. Now I am going to take up the line by line explanation of this poem. Now let's switch over to the poem. Upon Westminster Bridge by William Wordsworth. Earth has not anything to show more fair. So in the very first line, the poet begins by asserting that earth has nothing better to show than this scene. Means this is the best thing in the world. This is actually an exaggeration by the poet, that he's trying to convince us this is the best scene in the world, as compared, which is not possible actually. If you compare this scene with other beautiful scenes in the world, this may be beautiful in the eyes of the poet, but which is actually not a fact. So but we buy his point, because he's right now trying to convince us that this is the most beautiful thing that he has ever seen. Now the second line, dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. So in these two lines he is trying to tell us that it would be a very dull person, that person would be very dull, who could pass through without stopping to appreciate the majesty of whatever he sees. This sight is so majestic according to him. Alright, so now in the coming lines he is going to tell us, in these coming lines, now the poet is going to disclose about what majesty is there in these sight. Alright, so now the city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning silent and bare. So the city wears the beauty of the morning. So doth means does, or it's actually an archaic word. Alright, the city wears the beauty of the morning like a garment. All the ships, towers, domes, theatre and temples lie. So all the structures like ships, towers, domes, theatre and temples, they are silent and they are bare. Alright, so he's talking about the sight of a mighty city which is full of amazing structures made by man, like ships, towers, domes, theatres and temples. They are all spread before the poet's eyes and they lie open to the sky and field. So in the next line, open unto the field and to the sky. So all these structures are in front of him and they are appearing very beautiful to him. Why? Because they are very silent. Alright, so why they are adding to the beauty of the morning? Because there is silence, there is air which is smokeless. Also because of the smokeless air. So all these structures are shining and glittering in the sky. So all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Alright. So next line. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor valley, rock or hill. So the poet says that he has never seen a sunrise like this before. Like sun rising over the quiet scenes and the river, the river glideth at its own will. So for the first time, between sunrise and the beginning of the work day, the speaker feels there is a calm which is so deep. Alright, so in these lines the poet is trying to tell us that he has never seen sun in its splendor like this before. He may have seen sunrise through the valley or rock or hill, but this is a different scene altogether, and he is trying to heighten the effect of this sunrise. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. And in the calmness of the morning, he has never felt such a peace in his mind. All right, what could be the reason? Because London is a city which is all the time has full of cheers, full of noise, and it's always having hustle and bustle of the crowd. So at this dawn, in the morning hours, he's finding it so different from the actual city of London. So the river glideth at his own sweet will. The river is also silently moving at its own pace. Alright. Now, dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. So there are two things here which we have to consider. At this time he says all the houses are sleeping. What does that mean? That doesn't mean that the house is sleeping. It means the people in the house, they are sleeping. Alright. So the people is sleeping, the civilization is sleeping, and the beating heart of man-made structure is also sleeping. That means there is no activity. The city is serene. Which river they are talking about in this poem? It's the river Thames. And which city they are talking about? It's London. Alright. Now, the city is very serene, and dear God, the very houses. So here the poet he marvels over how still it is, because he is not able to accept the fact that London can be so peaceful, alright, can be so calm. He notices the mighty city's calmness here. Given that how big city like London is full of activity and is a commercial city, so Wordsworth is very much surprised or amazed at the calmness of this city at this hour. Alright, so this was all about the explanation of the poem, and I hope you have understood it well. Now we'll move on to the figures of speech of this poem. Upon Westminster Bridge and the figures of speech. Figures of speech basically is an expression that is used by the poet to bring about the beauty in the poem. And figures of speech are actually very important part of poetry. They may also be used in prose sometime, and they are used to bring images in your mind. They're used to bring the height in the meaning of the lines and to draw your attention. So the figures of speech that has been used by William Wordsworth in this poem, in Upon Westminster Bridge, I'm going to cover each and every figures of speech in each line. Alright, the first line, earth has not anything to show more fair. So in this line there is a hyperbole, because there is an exaggeration of the beauty of the early morning view of the city of London, and the poet says that from Westminster Bridge there is nothing more beautiful than this sight. So there is an exaggeration of the speech. Alright, the next line, dull he would be of soul who could pass by. Now there is an inversion because the correct prose order has not been used. Why? The correct prose order would have been, he would be dull of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty. Alright. Now in the next line, a sight so touching in its majesty, there is a alliteration. Can you see this S is repeated 2 times? Alright, so there is an alliteration in this line. Now the next line, a city now doth like a garment wear. Alright, so in this line I can identify there is a, first of all there is a use of word like. So you should understand whenever there is a use of word like, the figure of speech is simile. Why? Because when two unlike things are compared using the words as or like, the figure of speech is simile. And here you can see there is one more figure of speech, the direct comparison between the beauty of the morning and the piece of cloth using of the word like. So there is simile and there is a personification. Personification because the city has been given a human quality of wearing a garment. Alright, now the city has been personified, it's wearing a garment like a human being. And the next line is that has got figures of speech is ships, towers, domes, theatre and temples. There is an alliteration here because the letter T is repeated twice in the same line. Now the next line that has got a figure of speech is never did the sun more beautifully steep. So there is an inversion here and there is an hyperbole in these two lines. Alright, so mark it please. There is an inversion. Why? Because the proper prose order has not been used. The sun never steeped beautifully should have been the correct prose order. Which has not been used by the poet to bring about a beauty in the poet. Alright, and there is a hyperbole also. Why? Because the effect of the morning sun on the city of London creates an image or beauty that has never ever been experienced before by the poet. Okay, so next figure of speech that I am able to identify is this one. Never saw I, never felt calm in this line. Alright, never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. There is an hyperbole here because sense of calmness that the poet felt has been exaggerated. Alright, because he says he has never felt so calm before. Alright, now there is also an inversion here because the correct prose order has not been used. The correct prose order should have been I never saw, I never felt a calm which is so deep. Here it is written never saw I. Now there is also a repetition here because the word never has been repeated. And which word has been repeated? Yeah, the word never has been repeated here twice. So there is a repetition here. Alright. Next figure of speech is the river glideth at his own sweet will. So the river has been personified. Alright, so there is a personification here. Alright. Now next line, dear God, the very houses seem asleep. Again there is a personification here because the houses have been personified. Alright, so there have been two personification here. Alright, next, and all that mighty heart is lying still. Again there is a metaphor and personification here. Personification is easy to understand because the city of London is sleeping. The city is personified. Alright, now there is a important figure of speech metaphor here. Metaphor because there is a comparison of big city to the mighty heart that is lying still. Alright, so that was all about the figures of speech of this poem. I hope you enjoyed watching my video and understood the deeper meaning of the poem upon Westminster Bridge. In my next video, I'm going to cover the critical appreciation of this poem upon the Westminster Bridge by William Wordsworth. And if you want to watch more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel and don't miss the next video. The Learners Academy is dedicated to serve all the students. So that's all for today. Stay safe and have fun. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.